Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I am going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from Norway, Norwegian language English subs, released in the year 2012, directed by Alexander Nordas, and this film is called Thale. And the story of Thale is as follows. Two crime scene cleaners discover a mythical tailed female creature in a concealed cellar. She never utters a word, unable to tell her story, but the pieces of the puzzle soon come together. She's been held captive for decades for reasons soon to surface. So the movie starts off with two crime scene cleaners. They are cleaning up the results of these messy deaths, and on the second job of the day, they go to this remote cabin. This old man has passed away in a very gory way, and they're tasked with cleaning him up once again. But this cleanup is going to be unlike any other that they've ever had, because they soon discover that there is a cellar. This cellar hasn't been used in a very long time. So they go in there and they find these very strange papers, and something is definitely odd going on. Soon they uncover a mythical creature that has been held captive for reasons that they're about to discover. Something is after this mythical creature named Thale, and this something that is after them is putting Thale and the two cleaners in grave danger. So what happens at that point on, that's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Thale. Norway have been going from strength to strength in the horror genre, and Thale is another case of that. Now, it does have a lot of problems, unfortunately, but the movie is very interesting, and that is what captures your attention. And for a film to work, you need the attention, and that's something that they do. I thought the mythological approach to it was very interesting. It's like learning mythology from another country, so it feels like you're learning something as you're watching it, and that's not an everyday occurrence. So although it does have its problems, you kind of feel to yourself, yeah, this movie does have a purpose. It was worth the effort to watch it. Yes, it has problems, but every other film has problems. But unlike every other film, this movie still felt like it had a purpose and you had a reason to watch it. Now, to start off with, it is a very low-budget movie, and I was umming and ahhing about whether or not they could pull this sort of story off. You know, mythology in film, you know, obviously there's going to be a lot of CGI because they can't, you know, it's very hard to do practical effects for the mythological creatures. So I thought, you know, CGI and low budget doesn't go together very well, but I was really surprised to see that the CGI in the mythological forest creatures in the film looked really, really good. You're not going to point at it and laugh and say, how bad did that look? Because they are very passable. And I really like the way that it was done, because it has a very, it's a folklore kind of film. It feels like a movie that has been used. A story is centering upon, you know, Norwegian history, you know, the folklore of it. I'm not familiar with folklore from Scandinavia, but I'm always really interested to see it, because it is very much worth your time and effort. So the story is very good. It goes at a fairly brisk pace, but unfortunately it does get confused along the way. But I love the way that you want to know more, and when it gives you more, you feel to yourself, I want more, I want more, I want more. So you're always left with your attention, your eyes glued to the screen. Unfortunately, with the continuity, it feels like, although it's only a 75-minute film, it does get stuck in patches. So you feel, okay, I was on a roll here, but then I've stopped, and then I get on another roll, and then I stop, and then you get on another roll, then it finishes. So you think to yourself, well, without those little stop gaps, it would have been a lot better. I felt that there were scenes that were drawn out that really didn't require it to be drawn out. I kind of felt to myself, okay, get this over with, let's get to the good stuff, because we're running out of time. So that was my biggest criticism of it. It does get a little bit confusing along the way, and as a result of that, it is going to warrant another viewing, which can be a good thing. But I thought with a slightly more simplistic approach, it would have been a lot better, because you've got the interest from the viewer through the folklore, through the mythology of Scandinavia, of Norway in particular. That is the interesting part of it. It doesn't need these little twists and turns. It doesn't need these little stopgaps of drawn out material, because it doesn't require that. It doesn't need it, because the story itself is interesting enough if it was just very simplistic. I thought the acting was very good, although the cleaners were funny, but there were scenes where I was starting to get a little bit frustrated with them, for reasons I'm not going to go into. But the characters were not very well drawn out, which is okay, because it's only a short film. But there was something about one of the cleaners that I didn't really like. I didn't like to see him on screen. The other cleaner I liked. And it would have been better if both of these cleaners had a little bit more personality to them. It would have given them a little bit more colour. And when they're on the screen, and when these drawn-out scenes happen, it usually happens when these two cleaners are talking to each other. And because you don't really have too much interest in the cleaners, but rather the mythological creature, it's kind of taking the attention away from what you really want to focus on. So I didn't like that aspect of it. But for me, I thought, yeah, there's a little bit of humour put into it. There's a little bit of horror. Although I would say that if you're a horror fan, be careful because it's not a straight out horror film. It's got a little bit of blood, but it's not reliant on blood. It's basically relying on atmosphere. It's a very atmospheric film. It's a very beautiful film, but I thought it would have been also a little bit better if there's a little bit more horror put into it. I just thought there were some scenes that could have been bolstered a little bit with a little bit of nastiness. But having said that, it will appeal to a broader audience, which is something I can appreciate because it's not all about blood and guts these days. These sorts of movies, they don't come along very often where you get a really interesting insight into a country's folklore. I thought that the way it ended, it will leave youth wondering what it was all about, how it all unfolded. You might think to yourself, there's a plot hole here, there's a plot hole there, but that's going to make you want to go back and watch it again. So that's something that I think is it's a good move to have replay value in a film because you're not just going to watch it once and say to yourself, well, I'm not going to watch it again. So overall for Thale, once again, it's another very interesting horror film from Scandinavia, and it's a horror film that, although it does have negatives, I think that the positives warranted to come recommended. So overall, I'm going to give Thale 3.5 stars. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.